Calling all podcasters, musicians, vloggers, and reporters, and everyone else who wants crystal clear recording that's super portable. The Shure Motive family of microphones makes studio quality audio that's as simple as plug and play. Many of the world's top podcasters rely on Shure, and with a Motive line of iOS and USB microphones, portability is now your friend. Imagine being able to get great audio quickly and easily from your phone, tablet, or computer. Simply visit shure.com/motive to start getting great audio for your content now. That's SHURE.com/MOTIV.
Blog Talk Radio.
Here we go with the main event of the evening. Ladies and gentlemen in attendance, moms and dads joining us around the world. It's time for the bout you've all been waiting for. Finally, it is showtime.
Here, man, we dedicate our life to this sport. We do thousands of sit-ups in camp. We run hundreds of miles, for the ones that take it serious. And we just dedicate ourselves fully to our craft, man. We watch tape. We have attitude. We're rooting, and we go into that fight to land on the line.
Minnesota basketball fans, the Living in Loserville podcast returns. I am your host, Chris Carlson. My co-host, Aaron Miller, will be joining very shortly. Obviously, we're just coming off a loss here for the Gophers. Just, a chunk of minutes ago, maybe 20, 30 minutes ago, something like that, to Maryland on the road. No big shocker there. We talked about how we just need one of them. And, the Gophers did get that Purdue win, okay? So, if this is your first time listening to the Living in Loserville podcast, it covers Minnesota basketball pertaining to the Timberwolves and the Gophers. So we talk NBA, Timberwolves stuff, Gophers, NCAA stuff. We named it Living in Loserville because, they don't have a whole lot of titles among themselves, like zero. Now, we're not talking about the Lakers titles, 3 or 4 of them, whatever the hell it was, Minneapolis Lakers I'm speaking to. That's the last time we won a championship in any of the major sports. Sorry, Lynx. The Lynx is a major sport as far as basketball, but, I'll just stop right there, okay? I have a lot of respect for what they've done in the last 5-7 years. But anyway, here we are. The Timberwolves, the old 1 step forward, 2 steps back, man. But the Gophers, like I said, they lost tonight, but we do have some positivity to speak of. Unlike last week or, several of these shows in a row now. So, we're actually going to lead with the Gophers. We figure, hey, man, they got a big win when they desperately needed it. We might as well, give them some love. So I think we'll definitely start with the Gophers. As far as the Gophers, we'll talk about those back-to-back wins. Coffee had back-to-back 30-point games, really found his groove. So did a variety of other people's, including the big man, the fifth-year senior off the bench. So we'll talk about, those. We'll talk minorly about tonight, that 69-60 loss. The Gophers, made it respectable at the end. It definitely wasn't respectable, especially whatever. Talking basketball to the second, it was just ugly. But as far as it hurting long term, or as it be short term, I guess, it won't, especially when we shrunk it to that. But we will talk a little bit about that. We'll try to focus in on, the win at Northwestern, and especially that was big for a variety of reasons. What does it mean? Are the Gophers going dancing? Are they still just barely hanging on the bubble? we assume they're going to need to win in the first round. So we're going to talk Gophers. We're definitely going to talk Gophers. We have an idea somewhat whether it's 7th or 8th place where they stand. It really comes down to what Ohio State does, and that will lead us till Thursday as far as where we're going to be seated. So we'll talk a little bit about that, but it's not finalized, so we can't really talk about that. As far as the Timberwolves go, the positivity of that Oklahoma City win at home, there's the key word, at home. Somehow we have the season series back-to-back years, and I could see last year, but we've won the season series from Oklahoma this year, Oklahoma City. It's crazy. They're a pretty quality team this year, and we go and, beat them. But anyway, 3 out of 4. But anyway, we're going to talk to Timberwolves. The positivity part will be Karl Anthony Towns. His February and early May has been spectacular. It's been ridiculous. It's been all purpose as well. It hasn't just been rebounding in points and completely empty stats. Defense has come around. Sharing the ball has come around. So we'll try to find some positivity, with the Wolves. But obviously, those back-to-back road losses, you know what I mean? Come on, dude. Wow. It's just bad. It's been a theme, not just playing poorly on the road, but, really with some garbage losses that ultimately are going to be the reasons why we are not in the playoffs. And at this point, we're not going to say they're gone fishing, but they're getting their bait and tackle already. You know what I mean? They're gone fishing, basically. It's just not a technicality at this point. So we'll look at what's upcoming on this schedule a little bit. But like I said, if you look at the standings now, it's not looking good. It is not looking good. But however, if this is your first time listening to the Living in Loserville podcast covering the Gophers and Timberwolves, you can find it right here live on blogtalkradio.com/Rope-A-Dope Radio. It streams live, and it also archives right here. So it's basically the headquarters. You can also find it under the Rope-A-Dope Radio podcast. I'm speaking of Living in Loserville podcast. At iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, Player FM is a great source. We get a lot of listens to them. A lot of people like the setup. Same with TuneIn. I know the TuneIn app, helps you get to Spotify as well, from what I understand. And speaking of Spotify, the Living in Loserville podcast is the Grueling Truth Sports Podcast Network. It's basketball, it's football, it's boxing, it's baseball, it's everything in between. So you can find the Living in Loserville podcast under the umbrella of the Grueling Truth Sports Podcast Network. You can stream that on Spotify. You can also find it at iHeartRadio as well. And, of course, anywhere else you listen to podcasts. Head on over to gruelingtruth.net. That's the gruelingtruth.net. You can listen to the podcast right there while you're at it. You can, check out some really good, I was going to say interviews, but there are some interviews on the podcast and in print, so to speak, digital more likely. But you can, read an article right there. And while you're at it, you can place a bet, mybookie.ag. And before we get into this real quick, I'm going to do 2 different spots about the same thing. The second spot will come later. Now, for those who have cut the cord or are teeter-tottering, much like the Gophers on the bubble, teeter-tottering, are you teeter-tottering with your cable bill? Just looking at it every month going, I know I could spend money a little bit better than this. Anyway, I cut the cable in August. I gave myself about 5 weeks to just, decompress, but also just, try Hulu Plus, try YouTube cable, try the different cable sling and whatnot. I found DirecTV Now to be the best product out there. They have a 7-day free trial. I actually had DirecTV for a long-ass time, the satellite cable. And I changed to that, years ago because of my Comcast bill that was crazy. But then I started looking at my DirecTV, and I said, well, now they're both crazy, Comcast and DirecTV. That's why I switched to DirecTV now. You have packages starting at 45, 55, 65, 75. There's a Spanish channel. They have the cloud DVR, yada, yada, yada. Check it out, DirecTV now. You know, with this streaming stuff, you know, especially cable, it's one thing to do it on an app, but the cable, to actually have it on cable like a live broadcast, you know, the technology still needs to catch up. But I've noticed an improvement just in the last 7 or 8 months that I've had DirecTV now. So the second spot will be later in the show, but it pertains to AT&T customers. I myself have been with AT&T since my second cell phone. And it's just an extra layer to the already good price. But when you look at a mid-level $55 or $65 package, you're talking about 85 to 100 live channels. And, you know, you can add Netflix, you can add HBO, Showtime. Boxing fans, Showtime is $8 with this deal. So you can still have the Netflix, all that Amazon, and you're still saving, what, $50, $100 less per month? Just with, anyway, I'm going to shut up momentarily and bring in my co-host. What's going on, Aaron? How you doing, buddy?
I'm good, man. I just got home from work, got something to eat. I didn't get a chance to see the Maryland game, so I'm sure you'll fill me in on that. It looks like we lost. Not too surprising there. Thought we lost, you know, Gophers bubble team. Got really excited after the Purdue game. I thought, you know, we probably had made the tournament. But now, you know, you feel like you might have to win one or two more. We'll kind of go over that a little bit later. And the Wolves you're doing what the Wolves do, losing on the road and not really playing that well, with the exception of Karl Anthony Towns, who's just playing lights out lately. At least he has been every other game. So, you know, it's another kind of rinse and repeat, like you said, for the Wolves, and playoffs aren't looking very likely. So maybe start a little bit of lottery, thinking about that a little bit, because it seems like, you know, they might have all their tackle together and getting ready to get on the lake. So we'll see about that. I don't know. Other than that, all's been pretty well. Weather's improving, and I can't wait to get some of the snow melted off.
Well, don't get too excited for that, because we got, 6, 8, 10, 12 inches coming in tomorrow. So as far as that snow going away, although, you know what, that's the cool thing about March is, you know, the temperatures will go up, and it won't be sitting there forever. But, man, we have a stack. The flooding situation in the spring is not going to be pretty, is it? We know all the flood spots here in Minnesota and even the borders, North Dakota and whatnot, and you hear about it every spring. But when it's like this lake snow piled high, especially if we get another 10 inches, geez Louise. But anyway, let's get back to it. And like you said, I mean, we might as well go for Zion at this point for the Timberwolves. I believe in Zion. Let's bring him in. No, he'd actually be a perfect piece next to Cat. But we're not going to talk Timberwolves until a little bit later. We figure, hey, man, the Gophers are battling for, you know, the bubble. That's what it's coming down to. There's some folks out there that say they're in. That Purdue, you know, win did it. Now, they definitely need another win, I believe, just because why not get that other win and then lose to a Michigan State or a Michigan or something like that? We'll talk a little bit about the bubble like you mentioned. But why not start with the Ghosts, man? They had a lot of positivity back-to-back games. You know, Amir Coffey, who had been struggling mightily, back-to-back 30-point games. We haven't seen a 30-point game in quite some time from him. Not that in college you get a lot of 30-point games. I'm not trying to drag him through the mud, even giving him a positive vibe here. But it was nice to see him go, or get going, I should say. And you know, that Northwestern game, real quick, since it was a while ago, defense, offense, they played great. And Gabe, man, the three-point specialist who's more than a three-point specialist, Kolscher he really has been on fire of late, heading, right around that Northwestern game. If you look at the last 3 games heading into that, he was 13 of 17 behind the line, man. So we've talked about him and Arturo and how the future is bright with them, and more of that, basically. But yeah, they played great defense against Northwestern. You had Coffey being aggressive, having an exceptional, game right off the bat. I mean, he had 10 quick points before you knew it. We made a nice little run to extend the lead, and it was 32-20. Amir had 15 of those 32, and the 3 ball was just falling for the Gophers. I got all the way to probably the halfway point of that second half, 47-29, and then it was pretty much like no need for notes because they got this one locked down. So it was nice to get the must win, basically after losing a game that we needed, right? You needed that game prior to this, didn't get it. So heading into this Purdue game, desperation right there. It was a home game. Williams Arena was bumping. We had some recruits there too. And we're going to talk about the actual game, but of course we got to talk about the post game with not just the court storming. It was senior night. It was just a little bit more meaningful, especially for a guy, a senior. The seniors, obviously Murphy and whatnot, and Stockman had this crazy game out of nowhere. That was sweet. But Big Brer, what he's gone through, losing his mother, that was a pretty cool scenario, man, to see all the, people there. He's on the mic, and there's a couple of pictures that I saw on social media that, just him kind of elevated around a bunch of people, and it was just, it just felt good. It's been an up and down season, full of positivities and full of negativities, but this one just felt good. But heading into it, Curry, in practice, Curry, who's been a guy that's given us productive minutes, the scoring has not been found this year. I think he only had 1 or 2 good games, back-to-back games scoring-wise. But, he is kind of a rock defensively. He's a veteran. He's out for the season. So we are going to need Stockman even more to try to repeat even half of what he did in this game. But it was kind of an even start for both teams. The Gophers were kind of going on a run. We played really well in the paint. Murphy was, just killing him in the paint. Amir, was starting to hit more threes. Like I said, had a few assists. And you're looking at the game at half, 37-27. Second chance points, for the Gophers have been a theme all year. There was a little bit of issues there. That's what kind of kept them in there. But the second half, they got off to a great run. Coffey was just on fire. 50-38, I marked it down, 14 minutes left. You're like, okay. But then Gabe picked up a third foul. And, the second wave, especially in the second half of Stockman, the fifth-year senior who was with Patino as a freshman, I believe, at Louisville, this guy really put in some minutes, dude. When you look at, 9.6 rebounds and 7 blocks in a very short amount of time, kudos to him. But as the game started going, down the stretch, Purdue was just inching their way back in. They had an 8-0 run then, and next thing you know, it's 54-53. And there's only like 9 minutes left, and it started looking like the first matchup where they played great for, what would that be, about 30 minutes, give or take. Was it the last 6 minutes or something? And then pretty soon it was over. You're like, oh, that game's over. And it started feeling like that, Aaron. And before we kind of talk about the rest of the game, I'll let you, give your takes on the game as well. And of course, what happened afterwards. That's always a cool thing, especially with the recruits on hand. I kind of felt like, here we go. We've seen this happen before. We had a healthy lead. It happened in the first Purdue game, and I just didn't have the confidence until Gabe, hit his first three and put us up enough to where, even though it got ugly at the end, the Gophers managed to escape with the victory.
Yeah, it really did get dicey there for a second. There, like, oh no, we spent a whole show talking about the inevitable cliff that seems to come in the middle of Gopher games, and boy, we were just staring at it that time. But then Gabe came out and made a nice shot. I want to take it back to the Northwestern game a little bit, just because it's going to be really important going forward for Coffee to stay aggressive. I didn't get to see the game tonight. I don't know how aggressive he was. I know he had 23 points, and 23 out of 60 points, that's more than a third of the team's points. So I'm assuming that he stayed aggressive. We just didn't have a lot of options to go with him on that. So, I thought he played well, and you got to see that from Amir, because he's got to be that guy for you to come out and lead the team and be aggressive and kind of set the tempo for the team, since we don't have a point guard. Thinking to myself that if Isaiah Washington is ever going to step up this year, it needs to be now. I mean, we're going to a tournament where, a point guard shy of having a pretty competitive team for the NCAA tournament as well as the Big Ten tournament. If he could just step it up, play some significant minutes, I think that, that could kind of put a Band-Aid on the problem and really help us, because Kelcher's playing really well. They're hitting his stride. Oturu's coming along real nice. And now Stockman's kind of a wild card. You can use him in different matchups, which is nice to have around. Sad that Curry's gone again. Feel bad for him. He just rehabbed his knee back, and now his foot's all messed up. So that tends to happen with injuries, overcompensating certain parts of the body. So, that's different. You look for this team as a tournament team, as far as the Big Ten tournament. I think they've got to win a game. And it'd be nice to maybe go on a run, but I think you got to win at least one, get to 20 wins, like you said. I mean, that's kind of the number in the old school way. So you kind of want to have it covered in the new school way with all the different metrics that they're using now, as well as the old school way to get 20 wins on a season, which I thought we would breeze past 20, get 22, 23 wins start of the season, but it just didn't turn out that way. Some bad losses in the month of February kind of did that in. So, overall, I like the way they're playing. The Purdue game, I thought, was a game that we haven't seen around here in quite some time, sort of dominating a top 20 team, closer to top 10. I think they were ranked 11th coming into town. And, you want to see that effort every game. You want to see those results every game. I think that they match up really well with Purdue, and that's kind of the issue. As far as playing them so well this year. I still think we got the point guard problem, and if there's anything we can do, like a wishing well or somebody's bald head we could rub to just get Isaiah to step up and play, we'd have a pretty just Isaiah Washington short of having a pretty competitive team going into both tournaments.
Yeah, you're right, because right now it's like that Tupac song, To Live and Die in L.A. Well, we live and die with coffee. We literally do. And, let's let him do the Jelly Fam layup. Maybe we should negotiate with Isaiah and be like, hey, Patino, meet him halfway. Let him do the funky layup. It'll be fun, but maybe that'll help us focus. You know what I mean? But you're right, dude. You're right, man. That's what it's coming down to. It literally is.
He's such a you see him play in his good minutes, and he's like, yes, that's what we need. He's a great passer, when he wants to or when he's able to. And that's really, I don't care about his layups. I don't care if he shoots the ball at this point. I mean, obviously you want him to take his open shots when they're there.
Right.
But we need the guy on the floor to make those passes. I don't remember what game it was earlier in the season, but he played about 8 minutes, and they were 8 of the greatest minutes I've seen him play. He's dishing the ball around, making creative passes in the paint, getting in the paint and dishing off, which is really a problem for us. Besides Coffee, when Coffee hits the paint, he wants to go to the rim, and he doesn't look to pass too much. We need someone in there to pull a guy out of his defensive position and get the ball to an open player, and that's what he can do. He just, I don't know what's missing with him, and if we could just figure it out in the next week and get our team kind of completed, then that makes everybody so much better. I mean, Stockman coming off the bench when you want him to match up against maybe a smaller five or something like that is just really an interesting thing. I mean, I think we'll use him in that capacity, especially in the Big Ten tournament. But, when he goes into the NCAA tournament, no one's really seen him, and he's 7 foot whatever. That can cause a lot of problems on the inside, especially unexpectedly, and kind of be a wild card throughout the tournament and maybe win a game or two for you just by that. We just got to get this point guard thing figured out. And I'd have a lot more confidence going into the NCAA tournament if we are indeed entering the NCAA tournament.
Yes, and, as far as, getting the actual W when we needed it, and like you said, I mean, they're 11th in the country heading into the game, but if they win that game and they beat Northwestern, they win the Big Ten. So, and they were one of the hottest teams across the country, but definitely in the Big Ten. So they had their, it was right there for the taking, and they did not get it done, Purdue. It's a huge win. And like I said, especially coming off, Rutgers, the game we lost that we had to have. And then, finally they bounce back and get the job done. But it was nice to see McBrayer have that moment. The seniors obviously as well. I mean, Murphy has been, such a quality player for us. This year it has been a little frustrating, the 2-3 game zones where you're like, where'd you go? Oh my God, you're a beast. Where'd you go? It's been a tad frustrating, but overall the guy's been rock solid, since the day he walked in. So that was cool to see, some of these fifth-year seniors that have helped us as well. So it was just a cool scene, and especially that shot, I saw it on Twitter of McBrayer and everyone around him. He's got to be feeling pretty damn good about it in that moment. But no rest for the weary. And tonight, it was a slow start by both teams. It seemed like Maryland started hitting some shots. They hit back-to-back threes. It was only like 6 minutes in. They're up 15-7. Then you're looking at 22-12. Even when Bruno Fernando hit the bench with 2 fouls, it's still we just couldn't hit a shot, and we couldn't take advantage of that post as much as you'd think without Fernando, who killed it the first game. But it was 22-12 with about 10 minutes to play. Looking at 5 turnovers already. The Gophers, I think, were 6 of 18 at that time. And then Maryland went on a stretch of 1 of 12. But the Gophers couldn't really close the gap. Coffey, I think, finally hit a 3 a little later in the first half. It was 34-22 at the half. And it fell apart not there long after. I mean, it was rough. It definitely was rough. It turned into – it got pretty bad. I think they got up by 18 or something like that, I want to say. Don't quote me on that, but it was somewhere in that range. It just was ugly. The offensive rebounds, the inefficiency on offense, it was just rough. And 16-4 in the post, that was rough, especially when Fernando missed the chunk. I think it got all the way up to 43-24 before Kelscher hit a 3. And then after that, we cut it to I think 11 back threes, and you're thinking, all right, let's go. But then the Terrapins answer, like the veteran team they are, with an 11-2 run. They push it up to 17 or something like that, 18, 11 turnovers. They started out the Terps 7 of 10 from the field. And then the Gophers made a pretty admirable run, I guess. They ended up losing, I think it was 13-2 run. It cut the gap to make it look better, 69-60. So basically, we finished with a 9-11 record in the Big Ten, and we still have a shot for the number 7 seed as long as Ohio State loses this weekend. Either way, they won't be lower than 8. So when you look at it right now, it's tough to say, where we're going to be, obviously. Right now, if we did get the 7th spot, I believe it would be against Rutgers. Now, if we got the 8th spot, I believe it would be against Illinois, as it stands right now. So we're either going to be the 7th, and the next would be, that we could say Michigan or Michigan State, but they're playing on Saturday, so we won't really know. But right now, as it stands, if we're the 7th team, we'd be playing Michigan. But like I said, I can't really say as it stands because Michigan and Michigan State play each other. So it looks like it's going to be 7th or 8th. It comes down to Ohio State, and if it's Illinois or Rutgers, it'd be interesting to play Michigan for a 3rd time, though, if in fact they were able to win the first round. You said I think you need to even it out at 20. I think that was a good way to put it, Aaron. You got to get that 20th win, then losing to Michigan State or Michigan or Purdue potentially. That's not going to matter one bit. That's not going to matter one bit. It sounds weird to say that, but it's not. Just like tonight, losing on the road to a ranked Maryland team, that doesn't hurt us. That doesn't hurt us. And, not long ago, they had fallen pretty bad last week because I remember, talking about the standings, and I remember you brought up a good point of how we were, looking at that Iowa. I think it's Iowa and us, and sure enough, as it stands, it didn't feel like that last week, but it is coming down now. The 9 and 11, we would have liked 10 or 11 and 9. We were kind of looking at 11 and 9 actually a couple weeks back when we were talking about that the race inside the Big Ten, and not necessarily the actual race, but where the Gophers would be. And here we are. Iowa is 6th. They got 6th, for sure now. And we're right behind them, but the 7th or 8th, it comes down to Ohio State. But yeah, man, we need that. And they play Wisconsin, playing at home, but they play Wisconsin. And right now, everybody needs a win, right? Wisconsin's in, but why not improve your seeding? To go dancing, I think if we win the first round, I do believe that we're in based off a variety of items. And a lot of it has to do with bracketology. A lot of it has to do with a variety of them. Most of them have us at the 11th or 10th seed right now. That's what I've seen, 10th to 11th. Now, would it be nice to go beat Michigan State or Michigan? I mean, playing Michigan a 3rd time, that might be a charm. We've seen that in sports, whether it's football or basketball, that, it happens. It's hard to beat a team a 3rd time. So I'm with you, Aaron. We must win the first game. Then I think we're in. And honestly, if you're going to get in, a 10th and 11th is not a bad spot. I know it sounds funny, but if you look historically, even being the 5-12 seed for a while was a 5-12. A 12 was going to knock off a 5, but lately that 14 or that 13-4, and especially the 6-11, and even there's some recent data, since they went to 68 and they have those playing games, when it's been a recognizable name, we'll put it that way, VCU or whatever, that 11th playoff to get in to the actual tournament, 2 11s going head-to-head, they've managed to win that next game a lot more than you think, But the fact that the 6-11 would work for me, because, and even 7 or 10, right? The 7 and 10 is pretty damn close to one another. And the 6-11 is not as far off as you think. But, and maybe I'm just an optimist here, but if you look at the next round, too, you're not in there. If you're an 8th or 9th, you're like, oh, number 1 seed next. But if you can go against the 3rd seed, now you're talking. But I just want to get in the tournament. I don't want to be greedy here. But I do feel I'm with you. I think we're an 11th or 10th seed as long as we win Thursday in that what would be the second round technically of the Big Ten tournament because, you know, the bottom 4 play each other to advance.
Yeah, here's my problem with all of it. I couldn't think of 2 worse matchups in the 7 and 8 spot. I mean, Rutgers is a quick and fast get-out transition team. Illinois, the same thing. They both ran us once this year, and we don't have a point guard. That's a huge problem against 2 teams like that. You know, they don't have a lot, but what they do have is exactly the stuff that we can't deal with. So it's like, you know, gosh, you want to say that you can go ahead and kind of make it a foregone conclusion that you're going to win one of those Big Ten games. But, I mean, Rutgers had a fun time with us the last time we played them. Illinois ran us earlier in the season. We did manage to come back and beat them. So I'd be a little bit better, I think. I'd like the Illinois matchup a little bit better than I like the Rutgers matchup just because we've seen them so closely. I guess it hasn't been that much time since we've played them. And so, it's not a given, man. That one game is not a given. Now, going on to play Michigan in the second round, if we do manage to advance a third time, yeah, I like what you're saying about the third time, but Michigan's really tough this time of year. And, you know, of course, a win against them would be just awesome. But, you know, chances are we probably wouldn't beat Michigan in that matchup. So, in going on farther into the tournament, into the 10 to 11 thing in the NCAA, you know, once you get in, yeah, I think the problem last time we were there in the tournament, we managed to take like the best underground team in our bracket, which was like Middle Tennessee State. And nobody had really seen play all year, but they, you know, we kind of got the worst draw out of that bracket for an opening game.
Yeah, they brought back a
really
good
upset
team
about that. Yeah, and we just couldn't win that game, and that really kind of soured. Like, okay, so we barely back into the tournament, and we end up facing what turned out to be maybe one of the better teams in the bracket. Just kind of par for the course as far as.
We didn't back
well,
into the
that
we
year,
were the 5th seed. We were the 5th seed, and we were 4th in the Big Ten. So we didn't back.
I just don't remember how the season ended. Didn't we lose some games going into the end of the year on that year? I don't remember very well. I'm just thinking that we lost a few games.
They were the 5th seed and 4th, so that I don't remember totally. Maybe they backed in that way, but if you're the 5th seed, I don't know how much you're backing in, I guess. But I know what you're saying.
Well,
Not only that, but those 2 guards, Springs got hurt the game before or late in the season.
Yep.
And then Nate Mason gets hurt really early with that hip injury that took about 2.5 months to rehab, so we knew it was real. So it was like a combination storm of a bad draw there.
Yeah, and that was just really disappointing. And so I thought, you know, the 10 or 11 seed, I guess, what do you face, the 6 or the 7? Is that what you're saying, first part of the round?
Yeah, 6
or first
and 11
game?
is what we're looking at. 6 and 11 or 7 and 10. We'd be the 10 going against the 7, which are, you know, a lot more winnable games than people think.
Well, and you really hope that the Big Ten being such a battle this year, that you're going to come out sort of battle-tested. Maybe there were some other conferences won't. Maybe their conferences weren't as competitive top to bottom, where I really think the Big Ten's going to have a good year in the tournament just because of these teams have been just going at it all season. I mean, it's really been competitive, especially if you look at every team's road losses except for the top, you know, 2 or 3 teams in the conference. You just really couldn't buy a win on the road this year. And that says something about the conference, no matter who you played, whether it was Rutgers or Illinois, all tough teams to play. And I think, you know, you'll see some of that in the Big Ten tournament. All the teams are decent. I feel like, you know, the spot, I hope that the selection committee can take that into account, and hopefully the Big Ten has a good showing at the tournament, and they'll kind of prove that the Big Ten is might be the second best conference in America. At least I'm seeing that right now. That would be my opinion. We'll see how it plays out in the tournament, but I really think it's top to bottom just a nightmare of a conference.
It is. And it really, sometimes, much like the bowl season for college football, matchups can really matter about how the conference does in the actual postseason. So sometimes playing it doesn't tell every stat or whatever, but it is. It clearly is. There's really no debate. ACC and the Big Ten. Now the ACC is kind of top heavy, and it's not just Kentucky. You know what I mean? So they're definitely a pretty damn good conference. But yeah, you're right. You're totally right. That's a good call. And when you look at the Gophers, just to kind of piggyback up what they're saying, Aaron, I mean, if you look at the schedule, now we only had to play Michigan State once, right? Usually we play them twice, but we only had to play them once. We lost on the road. No big deal. It happens to the best of them, right? But we had to play Wisconsin twice, Maryland twice, Michigan twice, Purdue not once but twice. Those are 7 games right there. Basically the top 5 in the conference right there. And if you look at the top 3, we played 5 games against the top 3 teams. Just and like I said, the road game was Michigan State. So we've been battle tested. Now some of our non-conference opponents like Utah, like A&M, even Oklahoma City and Boston College, Oklahoma State, and Boston College to an extent, not as good of year as you would have thought when you're scheduling those, you know what I mean? But, like you said, we've been battle tested. So obviously we can't really go too deep in even previewing the next game. And I think you did a good job at covering both. And so we kind of know where we stand Thursday. We're both on the same page as it's a must win. We got to have it. Still got to have it. Whatever happens after that, I think we're in then. I really do. I do. If you look at the schedule in the conference, we didn't have some lackluster bullshit non-conference. So I'm not saying it was the best in the country, but it is what it is. Anything else Gophers related before we get into a short segment on the Timberwolves?
Just wanted to say, we are somewhat successful in neutral site games. That can give you a little confidence going into the Big Ten tournament. We've played really well in neutral site games this season. So, I'm a little worried about the Illinois-Rutgers dilemma. And, if we come out and we play well, I think we'll win the games. It's just, are you going to have that clunker? And you don't need that clunker now. You need to at least get a little momentum in the tournament, win one game, and really seriously try to win that second game no matter who you play. And like you said, right, the conference is so close that, you can beat a Michigan. You can beat a Michigan State. If you play well and they don't play well, or they, or you just go out and beat them. So I think if you win that one game, I think you got a chance to win that second. And if you win that second, you're talking about maybe going up to a 9. So if let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's stick with the 11 and 10 dilemma. But if you can win 2, you could possibly go up a little bit in that seeding. So things are looking up for the Gophers. I hope that they play well entering the Big Ten tournament.
Yes, Thursday, man. Thursday is the day. It's a must-win. Then I think it takes care of itself. And then we'll judge this season a little further. And I figure we can somehow figure a way to do Sunday night or something like that. That way we'd know if we were in the tournament and what we did in the tournament. I think that might be an interesting show, but we'll figure that out. Heading to the Timberwolves, like I said, it won't be – it's negative. The old 1 step, 2 steps back, rinse and repeat routine. The road has just been a treacherous place for the Timberwolves. Covington still didn't practice now. Didn't practice, dude. Like, Oh my God, what is going on with his knee, dude? I'm really, I used to be worried about it. We mentioned this on air and even off. We said, oh man, I'm a little head scratching on this one, huh? And here we are. Hasn't touched the court. Now they did send him to the G League to kind of, basically move around and get some shots up or whatever. But I don't know, man. Still no Covington. Anyway, 2 losses. The last 3 games were 1-2, and both of those, I'm going to speak of the Oklahoma City game a little bit. That'll be another positive along with Cat. But we were up early, came out very strong against the Pacers, and then the Pacers came storming back, and it was basically a tie game at half. Now, Cat had 23 in the half. He was going ape shit in that game. But you're looking at the third quarter, and it's the midway point. It's 74-73, anybody's game. We had 16 turnovers at that point. It's anybody's game, but still, dude, 16 turnovers in a game is horrible, let alone midway through the third. Cat gets in some foul problems at the 5:44 mark in the third. I wrote it down. But still, it's 92-90 at the end of the third. It's not a death sentence. It's kind of a back and forth, pace type fourth quarter. Pacers kind of got up a little bit, I think, by like 6 or 7. T-Wolves closed the gap. It's 102-101 with 8 minutes left. We're kind of trading buckets in the lead down the stretch. Good game. At the 3:31 point, Wiggins missed not 1 but 2 free throws. Then proceeded to get burnt on the back door defensively. And then it wasn't just Wiggins, by the way. Cat as well. A couple other people missed more free throws in the stretch. And, it was just ridiculous. They were 20 of 30 at, down, I think, not for the whole game, but 20 of 30 in that moment, with like 2 minutes left. Then we've seen this too, where whether it's Dario or somebody, sometimes it's Dario or Rose lately, he passes up a whole wide open 3, gets it to Teague. Teague's got to go, oh shit, it's the end of the shot clock, puts up a floater, and it fell short. And, that's it. It's 112, 107, 150 mark. Teague missed another free throw. Just yet another struggle down the stretch in a winnable game. And you saw more of that with Detroit. This looked like 2 years ago where we had a 17-point lead in the first half. And that just dwindled down. Pretty soon, look up and it's time the game. Oh, wait, no, it isn't. They're up. Oh, the game got control. And when you look at the stats, we shot 49%. Hit 12 threes. They only hit 14. We shot 44% from the 3. 20 of 21 from the free throw line. We got out rebounded. Offensive rebounds been a trouble for the Gophers and the Timberwolves all year, 11-6 there. But you're looking at it, and there's not this huge discrepancy. Now, the points off turnovers, that was big, and in the 13-5 total turnovers, that was rough. But then you look at, okay, well, we had some players that were stepping up, and then it kind of just fell off, and Towns, totally fouled out, and, we ended up losing Detroit. Coming off an Oklahoma City game, they looked great. I mean, they looked phenomenal in that Oklahoma City. Now I'm going to the state again. And it's so, and what do you know, is at home. And what do you know, Wiggins is going against Paul George. So, Paul George coming to town? Oh, Harden's coming to town? Oh, time to step up. Yeah, we've heard this one before. And, they played great, dude. They were shooting a high percentage. Even Cat with foul problems still managed to have a big game. Teague, at half was at 8 points, 6 assists, had a really good game. Wiggins, 3 of 6 from 3-point land. It was a great game. It was a great game. I'm all thinking, okay, Cat, you could see from February, and now, in March, he's developing a bully mentality. He's spreading the actual ball. I'll give some numbers a little later. Rose is, continuing to be instant offense off the bench. It's looking great, and then Detroit happened. And it's just the same old story with this Timberwolves team, man.
Let's just call it what it is. Assuming that we beat the Thunder, as we always beat the Thunder, Andrew decides to wake up and play a little bit, we should be in the midst, 4 games into a 6-game winning streak. If we were a decent team, we should have beat the Pacers, could have beat the Wizards, would have beat the Thunder, the Pistons, the Wizards again, and the Knicks. That would have been 6 wins in a row, and then talk about the positivity that would have come after that. I mean, there's really no reason why we shouldn't be 4 games into a 6-game winning streak at this point. It's just something that, it's sickening. Now, Covington's story, every week it just drags on. And you and I, we called it. We knew it was going to come back from. We thought, he's coming back after the All-Star game. And, but we just kind of knew that a week went by, and now 2 weeks have gone by, and went down to the D-League and did his little thing, and now he's back, and he's not going to play. I don't know if we're going to see Covington again as a Timberwolf. I really don't have a lot of confidence in the fact that we're going to see him again. We might see him at the last 2 meaningless games of the season come out and run, but it just doesn't seem like whatever is ailing him is getting any better. And not saying it's getting worse. For a bruise that we've talked about, this is one heck of a bruise, and I don't know if I can remember a bruise that was so substantial. He's probably at 28 games now out for the season. That's more than Butler was out last year. So, yeah, it's just kind of, like you said, it's the same story over and over again with this team. They'll come up and win a good game, play well, show you how they can play, and then go ahead and lose the next night to a not very good Pistons team on the road. And you could say it's home, or you could say it's road, or you could say, but you should beat the Pacers. They're down there, guys. You should beat the Wizards. They got nobody. You should beat the Pistons. They got nobody. And then you got the Knicks and the Wizards again. I mean, this should be a streak of games that it really cements you into playoff position. And instead, we're probably looking at a 5-1, 4-2 type of run, which should have been a 6-0 run. And it's really disappointing, and there's really not a heck of a lot to say about it. I'd like to go on, but it's just in the pit of negativity that just don't want to get into it. Let's hope they can turn it around. But at this point, you lose 6 games that you should win, and it's just not good.
Yeah, I mean, it really isn't. It's ridiculous. And tomorrow they're home for Washington and home for New York. I mean, those are wins. Gotta be. Then, though, it gets nasty, dude. And this is what we were talking about during this stretch, why it was so important, because it gets dirty, dude, at Utah, at Houston. Oh, you're at home, but who are you playing? Golden State. Now, at Charlotte, they're not a bad team. At Memphis, it's on the road, and, hey, it's Memphis. I mean, we suck against Memphis, just like we do well against Oklahoma City, which is unexplanatory. Last year was different. I'm talking about this year now, too. For whatever, Memphis just lines up. Now, actually, they do. Now I think about it, they did sell their team. But so did the Clippers, and there they are in the 8th spot. So I think we can beat Memphis, but it's a road game. Then it's the Clippers, who sold their team and is still in the frickin' 8th spot. They sold it. They don't have their best player. Then it's, Golden State again. At home at Philly. Portland. Dude, it's like, and we end the season with Toronto and at Denver. Dude, that's wow. That is it's over. We're the 10th right now. It'd be a flip of the coin with the Lakers and us for the 10th spot in the draft as we speak.
And to mention.
There's the preview for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I know. And your power forward gets 42 points on the road against the Pacers, and you lose by 7. I mean, what does that say? You get 41 points, and you go ahead and you beat the Thunder by 11. That's respectable. It's so. Or do people just sit around and watch Cat? Is that the thing now? Like, I don't I don't understand what's going on. Maybe it's something that has to do with, gelling, but we got 2 max players on this team, and like I said, we can't beat the Pacers, the Wizards, and the Pistons. That sums it up.
Yeah, it really does. And speaking of Cat, in the last 5 games, he had his 4th 30-point, 10-point game. If you look at, the last 5 games in general, 36 points, 16 boards, 4 assists, 2 blocks, 60% from the field shooting. If you look at since February 1st, now this is including the last game too. Since February 1st, 31 points, 13 boards, 4 assists, shooting like 44% from 3. The dude is just, and like I said, the 4 assists is key in there. He is spreading the ball. He is starting to defend more. You're starting to see him chase less, or not starting to this season now, especially since Butler's been gone. We've seen him chase a lot less blocks. Like I said, he's turning into a bully. He's finally not getting bullied, especially from the Kentucky centers that are in the league, but just in general. He's answering the bell, just like he answered the bell down the stretch without Butler last year. And you got to ring the frickin' bell, and then ring the bell again, and then go up to his room and say, Andrew, we got a game. Andrew, we have a game. Get up. Like, stop napping. Even Shaq didn't nap for 3 games, 3 hours before games. I'm going to stop. But I'll tell you what, Jones is showing me a lot this season, that, and the fact that he just signed a deal, so it gives us about a 2 or 3 year buffer to put stuff around them. That's like the bright hope there, because the other bright hope, it's like the spare parts are playing phenomenal with him. The others, it's really hit or miss. The Covington thing is still, I don't know. You can be careful, but I just don't, I don't know. And I am starting to now think, like you're thinking about, maybe it's something else, not just worrying about his actual knee, but maybe it's actually something going on. I find it hard to believe after what he played for 15 games or something. I kind of find it hard to believe that he'd be, forcing a trade, but anything's possible. I'm going to leave every door open on that. But here we are, March 8th, and his last game was December 31st. So either way, it's not a positive thing, regardless if it's an issue he has with our locker room or his knee. That's just as pressing, you know what I mean? But anyway, anything else, sir, before we get the hell on out of here?
Oh, I was just going to question that, you mentioned we might have 3 years more with Cat. Man, it's going to get dicey because, national media is going to be like, got to get him out of Minnesota. He's wasting his career,
right.
And that's going to start cranking up towards the end of the season and just get louder and louder and louder throughout next season. And, it puts us in a weird spot. Do you just go ahead and cash in the chips on Cat, get yourself 5 new players and go with that? Or do you try to stick it out and say, screw you, we're going to keep him and try to build around him? It's a tough question because that's coming. It's going to crank up, and it's going to be Barkley and Shaq and all those guys saying, well, he's such a great player. It's a shame he's in Minnesota, and, all over again. And we got to make a decision on whether he signs or he doesn't, and it'll just be a whole thing. And, I guess what do you do then? Do you just trade him and try to start over with a new thing, or do you hang on and build around him? It's a tough question.
Yeah, the playoffs are a must next year. The playoffs, sneaking into the Ace, whatever. Just the playoffs have to be there next year. He just signed the deal knowing this stuff, so I don't think it'll be next year as far as him and his agent going, we need to get out of here. That's why I think there's a little buffer there. But, yeah, man, as we know, it can get ugly quick. There's no doubt about that. Let's just wrap it up here, the Living in Loserville podcast. One more thing before we get out of here. I mentioned the DirecTV Now package. Talked about the $45, the $55, the $65, the $75 packages, and that ranges from 65 live channels to 85 to 105 to 120. If you're an that's just straight up DirecTV Now, okay? But if you are, like myself, an AT&T customer, you can actually lock those prices in for 2 years. Now, inflation is a mother effort, right? As we know, everything is going up except, the common person's wages over the next decade, right? That's how they do us. But, you can lock those in for 2 years. So those are great prices. You can lock them in if you're an AT&T customer. But either way, DirecTV Now is something you should check out. 7-day free trial. And if you're thinking about cutting the cable, try it out. You don't even have to cut your cable, technically, right? You don't even have to. You don't have to. And if you do the package deal, or just in general, part of this deal is, let's say you need a new Roku or an Apple TV type, whatever app, however you're going to get the app going with it, that they throw the Roku right in there. So that's a little savings right there as well. Anyway. Let's hope the next time we're talking, the Gophers are a 10th or 11th seed. Obviously, the ultimate hope would be to beat Illinois or Rutgers and to beat Michigan or Michigan State and to get to the semifinals. But we just want to get in the tournament. It would be a pretty good accomplishment, and I think it would help the program in general. It would keep Pitino here, and it would help land that key big man recruit that we need for this next year. With Murphy leaving, we got two guys. I do believe Curry's going to come back strong, with the next 2 years, and obviously Arturo's on the up and up. But you still need that other player, and obviously, Murphy's been so productive. He's played a lot of minutes, so whoever that is out there as a freshman, they know that's it. There's a spot for me there, and that would really help get that. So we'll see. Timberwolves, Anyway, let's get out of here. Enjoy the Thursday game. Enjoy some of these Timberwolves games coming up if you can. Peace.
Once you become the world champion, I believe that you feel you have the upper hand. So now when
the ruling on the field stands.
We deliver jerseys, funny foam fingers, and everything you need for the game. But what you really get is so much more.
FedEx Delivery.
Game day spirit. What we deliver by delivering.